Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marion Cowigowen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time, I was made to watch Brigadoon.
Oh, that was a good brog you had there. Mm-hmm. Very nicely done. Yes, otherwise known as Part 2 in Gene Kelly's tour of Europe. Doing movie musicals, or an American in Edinburgh. Edinburgh. I don't have a brogue. I can't do it. Can you do it? Can you say
Edinburgh?
Edinburgh. Or how about an American in Glasgow?
Yeah.
That's better because we don't know where this is. It's Brigadoon. It's the 1954 movie version of the smash Broadway musical from 1947, and the movie was not a smash for maybe reasons that we will figure out. I don't know. But starring Gene Kelly, Sid Charisse, Van Johnson, and a whole bunch of other people who I think are dancers and not actors, and I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Directed by Vincent Minnelli. We were looking at the credits for this, and Dave said, is that any relation to Liza? Yes, it's her father.
Cool.
Did you know that going in and you were just being silly, or you actually didn't know?
I assumed.
Okay.
Because that seems like a pretty uncommon name, but yeah.
Based on the Broadway version, the Broadway musical by Lerner and Lowe. I think I don't have my notes in front of me. I think it's Lerner and Lowe.
No one cares.
Okay, fine. So, okay, what did you know about this going into it?
Nothing. I knew. I heard the name. I knew it was a musical. That was it.
Yeah. What do you think of it now?
I don't know.
It had been a while since I had seen this. I want to say it had been like 20 years.
Yeah, this movie is legit almost 70 years old.
It's a little terrifying.
So therefore, the stage play is more than 70 years old.
Well, the stage play is 75 years old. Same age as my mom.
Yeah, I think the problem is the thing that I'm realizing as someone who consumes a lot of media and has over the entire course of my life, and I'm starting to share that with a child, is that things change. Like, really, I can draw a better parallel to video games. Like, myself and our son, we've been playing retro video games on the weekends, so I can introduce him to some of the games that I played when I was roughly his age, and just the mechanical way that they function is so different than a modern game. And so much of it is taken like, well, of course you know this because you grew up playing these, so we don't really have to explicitly explain how this stuff works. And it's changed so much, maybe so much that current generation kids and beyond won't be able to get any joy out of it. And I feel like the same thing has happened with musical genres or movie genres and musical genres, but movie genres like this. It's changed so much. Like, what is a movie that's been made in the last 20 years that was like this? You can say any number of musicals, but they weren't so fixated on dancing. They fall in love in this movie through dance. Yeah. Like, that is their way that they're so full of emotion that they dance, and all the townspeople spontaneously dance.
To be fair, I feel like you and I don't watch a whole lot of musicals, let alone ones that are dance heavy. Like, I feel like La La Land had a lot of dancing in it. It's technically musical.
But La La Land was explicitly a throwback to musicals like this, right? Okay.
Right.
I mean, right? Wasn't it?
I don't know.
Like,
I didn't see it.
Don't quote me. I didn't see it either, but I feel like it was explicitly calling back to movies like this that don't get made anymore.
Don't quote me while I say things that I have no foundation.
I mean,
I
heard
say it very confidently.
Oh, it's a throwback to. I mean, like, I heard people reviews literally quoted in trailers for this movie a throwback to the golden age of Hollywood musicals. Like,
okay, well, let's. I know a lot of times on this podcast we don't give a synopsis of the movie; we just dive right in. But I think we should because, as you said, this is almost 70 years old, and it's old enough that a lot of people may not know anything about it.
Nothing happens in this movie.
That's not true.
Nothing happens.
Harry Beaton dies.
True.
Sexy Harry he goes shirtless.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shirtless Scotsmen,
The
which
guy has a prominent butt chin.
he really does.
It's good.
Well, there's a chase. We're going to explain this in a second. There's a chase of this character named Harry, and it was reminding me of in Beauty and the Beast when the villagers are chasing the beast, which is hilarious because the actor who plays Harry in this version looks like Gaston, so it was like turntables. Anyway, two Americans played by Gene Kelly and Van Johnson are grouse hunting in Scotland, and they get lost and they stumble across this village.
They're wearing suits.
They're wearing sporting gear.
Right. They're in their sporting suits.
That's what you do in 1954.
Gene Kelly is wearing a sport coat.
Yes.
And the name has never been more appropriate as he is conducting outdoor sports in a sport jacket.
Also, if you today, not that I hunt now, but today hunters have to wear orange all the time so they don't get shot. But they're all in these neutrals, tans and greens, and he's got like a bright orange T-shirt underneath and then orange socks. That's the only bit of hunter's orange they have between them, which is just, how times change. Anyway, they stumble upon this village and they're trying to just get directions and get some food. Apparently they've been
not on
out.
the map. Not on the map.
And everyone is dressed sort of oddly and is sort of staring at them. And when they say they're from America, they say, "Oh, you're from America." And, and Tommy, who we've exposited, has this fiance back in New York who he doesn't really love, doesn't know if he wants to marry her. He's just sort of unhappy with life, because that's always how it goes. When you're unhappy with life, you go on a trip and you find a place that makes everything turn out right. That's just, it's very convenient how that happens.
Works every time.
Right. 60% of the time, it works every time. And he meets Fiona and they instantly fall in love, and it's her sister's wedding day. At first, he just thinks it's her wedding day, and then it's not. And oh, how lucky. And they fall in love while dancing in the fields of heather.
They do multiple falling in love dances. I think I counted 3 falling in love dances. And then it culminates in the final, we are definitely in love dance. Like, I feel like the first 2 have singing. And then the last one is just like...
That's when the emotion is so great that you can't sing. You just dance. Right. Have we ever done that?
Like this year?
Ever. I don't think you've ever danced with me. Except
probably
under duress.
Yeah, like... Not like this.
That's our problem. That's what we need to fix our marriage, is more dancing.
We haven't swung around the limbs of a tree together. And
haven't picked heather together.
Right, exactly.
That's going to be our second honeymoon, is in Scotland, picking heather. Yeah. They'll be like, "Excuse me, sir, ma'am, this is a national park. That's a protected species. You don't understand. We're going to pick heather for the marriage.
Love and heather.
This must happen." And they're like, "Oh, officer, we got a couple of Brigadoon fans." Yeah.
We found the 2. The last 2 fans of Brigadoon.
So I wonder, 2054... which is in the timeline of this movie, when Brigadoon will come back again. Yes, I wonder, are they all going to be on alert? Like, look for some grouse hunters who are dressed in neutrals. And anyway, it turns out that Tommy, it's explained to Tommy what the deal is with Brigadoon. Essentially, it's a magic village where to protect it from witches.
It's God magic.
Yeah.
It's not magic.
Right.
It's a miracle.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, it's true. It's a miracle. You're right. To protect it from witches, their minister made a bargain with God that every day in Brigadoon is 100 years later in everyone else's time. So it just disappears.
That it would disappear into the mist, and after 100 years passed, everybody would wake up and it'd be the next day.
Yes. So
he made this agreement on a Wednesday. And now it's Friday, 200 years later.
They went to sleep in 1754, and then they woke up in 1854, and they went to sleep, and then they woke up in 1954, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
However, to make this work, no one from Brigadoon can leave. Ever.
Yeah, it's surprisingly comprehensive, and they are surprisingly informed of all of the minutia, despite the fact that he made the deal outside of the town borders so that when the town was put into the mists, he would be outside as a quote unquote sacrifice. But somehow this one dude knows all of the ins and outs of it, down to the like legalese at the bottom of like, it's like the Santa Claus at the bottom of and if you love someone enough, hey, anything's possible.
Yeah, well, and Jeff, the snarky friend, is like, oh, you've worked out all these details. He's right. Why do we know all this stuff?
Spot on.
But Mr. Lundy, the school teacher, of course, the smartest person there is the teacher, knows all this stuff. And Tommy says, with much meaning, can anyone stay if they want to? And Mr. Lundy's like, well, if you love someone enough to give up everything else, which, yes, if you're going to disappear and it's 100 years later the next day, then I guess that would involve giving everything up.
Yeah. And it's like, I just want to see the dude, the minister, like the priest or whatever of this town, like negotiating this deal, I mean, what if someone were to fall in love? Like, so what you're saying is this town is going to disappear for 100 years at a time. And just in case, on the one day out of every 100 years that it's here, someone wanders into town and falls in love strong enough in one day to want to stay, you want me to make a provision so that they can stay if they want to stay.
Yes, Your Almighty. Yes.
Right.
Yes. And God's like, I made it not work like that. Love doesn't happen that fast. But if it did, Your Almightiness, just in case. Yeah, our accents are completely all over the map.
Yeah, just like theirs in the movie.
Yeah. Geez. Yes. This wins the Kevin Costner Award for crazy accents.
But like it's just such a weird... just very specific. And also I like when the school teacher's telling him about it. He's like, well, because of the witches. Of course we know witches don't exist.
But we did this elaborate plot because of the witches anyway.
You and me, we know. But their influence, or whatever.
Yeah, I had forgotten that part. And I was like, I feel like I need to go back and read some history books about this because I feel like in real life there were probably a lot of women burned.
Yeah, yes. And there's like, he's like, they were, there was a band of, they weren't in Brigadoon yet, but there was a band of witches that was coming. Like a convoy of witches was on its way. Like, I assure you.
Probably the Scottish Alex Jones was like, let me tell you.
Right.
All about it.
They're coming to make the frogs gay.
They're what's the term he uses? False flag, but what's the other?
I don't know.
Crisis actors? Something. Sure. Anyway, yeah. 18th century Scottish Alex Jones. That's terrifying. Right. Let's not speak of that ever again. One thing that I think is hilarious, I looked it up. So the Broadway version of this, today's version of this, came out in 1947. So it is from 1747 to 1947. It's real time. They do the movie from 1754 to 1954. In that 7 years between 1747 and 1754, apparently things changed a lot in Scotland. For example, wearing that much tartan was not allowed. So right. They wouldn't have been doing that in 1754.
Yeah.
And that's why a little history is helpful, kids. I'm sure that hardly anybody pays attention to this when they're watching the movie. But now that I know, I cannot unknow it, and I'm just giggling the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Also, let's point out, there's a lot of sort of bachelor and bachelorette energy happening here.
Yeah.
Fiona's sister, Jean, is getting married to Charlie. And Fiona and the girls are hanging out with Jean, helping her get ready. And Fiona sings this whole song, and they do a lot of dancing and role playing and this and that. And I said to Dave, that's exactly what, I didn't have, our wedding was very small, but that's exactly what I did with my now sister-in-law when we hung out the day of her wedding to my brother. That's completely, and then the groom, Charlie, is, I don't know why I say it like that.
Yeah, I don't know why I say it like that
It's just coming out, does a whole dance number about how he's going to go home with Bonnie Jean, which sounds to me like a reference to, and we're going to get it on when we go home. But he does a whole dance number around the fountain And I said, Dave, did you do that the day that we got married? And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, the great thing about that scene is that the two strangers are like, at first, everybody's really apprehensive. Like, who are these two people? Because you don't, you know, unless you read the description on HBO Max, you don't know that this is like magic.
Right. Every description of this movie completely spoils it, by the way.
Yeah.
Assumes that you already know, and it is not a surprise to learn that it is a, quote, magic village. But...
Right, because you can say, like, there's a sarcastic part like, oh yeah, spoilers for a 68-year-old movie, but also like someone hasn't seen The Sixth Sense. Right. And if you were just like, hey, here's the twist of The Sixth Sense in the description of The Sixth Sense, you know, like someone hasn't seen The Crying Game. You don't just put in the description what the twist is. Also,
sometimes like you've heard it and so you sort of know, but that doesn't mean you need to be reminded of it right when you sit down to watch the thing.
Right.
Like I knew the spoiler to The Sixth Sense before I watched it, but I didn't have it spelled out explicitly. So anyway.
Right. Yeah. But they do this whole dance, and the two outsiders are just like put on the spot to not just join the dance, but to do like a solo.
Yeah.
And they're both at first very reluctant and somehow just bust out this
a whole routine,
soft shoe routine that they've clearly been practicing in their downtime. Like,
well,
they
it's
just
Gene
boom,
Kelly.
you know,
he just,
like,
you know, I thought I noticed the sound of taps and they're dancing on dirt.
Yeah. This was probably one of those things where like, I don't know what he was like behind the scenes, but like if he was, I get the image of him, like I can imagine this version of him, whether it's true or not, a very tyrannical and like.
Apparently he was.
We're going to be doing a tap routine. And he's like, they're all like, but Gene, there's no hard surface for you to tap on. Like, I don't care.
It's magic.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
This is what Foley artists are for.
Mr. Forsyth, put it in contract with God. Oh, and your almightiness. One more thing. Can you make the dirt around the fountain? Can you make it sound like taps?
If there should ever be a couple of strangers, now I'm Irish. If there should ever be a couple of strangers that come around and they want to do a wee soft shoe routine with a tap and dancing, can the dirt make a sound like parquet floor?
And God says, wait, I thought that, well, I'm Scottish now, God said, I thought that dancing was a sin. You're so afraid of the witches. And Mr. Forsyth says, well, at some point, it won't be.
It's not witch-type dancing.
There'll be some syncopated rhythm and it'll be fine.
It's not. There'll be space for the Lord betwixt them.
Yeah. It'll be two men, you know. No hanky-panky.
Nothing nefarious can ever come from two men dancing. What are you thinking about? Oh, this movie. You gonna make it? You gonna make it? You gonna be okay? We finally broke her here.
It's been a while since I had
since you've had a
breakdown.
Yeah. So they do a dance, and like I can buy the. There's a sort of a thing where the people are dancing of the town, and then they're dancing, and like I can get on board with like, okay, these guys are watching them dance and like figuring out how to do the dance, but when they break into their solo routine, just like from out of nowhere, like.
Well, I imagine that Jeff, the friend, is drunk.
Oh,
like,
sure.
All the time. I feel like his blood alcohol level his blood is like 100% Scotch whiskey all the time. And so I'm told you dance better when you're drunk. Certainly I do. Yeah.
And so that at a certain point, being friends with a Gene Kelly character in a movie that's par for the course. Yes. You're going to have to learn coordinated dance routines.
So speaking of a Gene Kelly character, this Gene Kelly character is very similar, I think, to the Gene Kelly character in American in Paris.
Sure.
You might, I guess you could say that, let's see, when was that? No, it's about the same time period. So this is not like an extended Gene Kelly universe where this character is, he dumped Lise and anyway. So Jeff, the Van Johnson, the friend, is Oscar Levant. basically. Like, could you not see that actor doing most of these lines? Like, he's soused most of the time. He's just sarcastic. He's, like, that's...
Well, and I think that's what, I have currently watched 2 Gene Kelly movies, and in both of them, his character is kind of like lovelorn, like, but also like painfully sort of backward shy, but also comes out of his shell at a moment's notice. And yeah, like he needs a grouchy foil to like poke at him.
Which in a sense is just rom-com 101. But
yeah, like this would be played by like, Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
Or like, somebody like that these days. Like,
yeah. So now I feel like I need to see some more Gene Kelly movies. Did he do any where he was an American in Berlin or Vienna?
We can only hope.
Or Barcelona or anything like that?
This is becoming a Gene Kelly podcast from here on out.
Gene Kelly in the EU, or no.
Right.
What was the EU at one point?
Yes.
Yeah. So there were not nearly as many songs in this movie as I remembered. And I think that's because at one point, my exposure to this was chiefly from the Broadway soundtrack, where there's like 2 to 3 times as many songs. There were a lot of songs that were not included in the movie, apparently because someone at the censor's office found them morally offensive.
Okay.
I don't know what could have been offensive unless, Tommy is singing like I'm going to lay you down in that heather. And I'm going to do some things. Like, I don't know what would have been left out. You're making a face. Like, what would you consider morally offensive?
I'm just like, you went right to that. Like you have, like you have a like fanfic of this in a folder on an old computer somewhere, like ready to go.
Got fanfic about Mr. Lundy. He's like, I'm going to teach all the women to read. That's what the witches don't want me to do.
That'll keep them out.
Right. So the mistreatment of witches throughout history, or women who were considered witches because they, sort of broke the mold, is a little bit of a feminist soapbox. And so I had forgotten that all this happened because they're trying to avoid the witches. And so now I feel like I'm betraying the feminist sisterhood by liking any bit of this movie, because this was all done to avoid women who were considered witches, who probably weren't. They weren't doing anything wrong. They just wanted to know how to read.
Right.
They were the midwives, and the doctors were like, we can do this now because we will make more money that way. And the women said, no, we know what we're doing. And the doctors were like, witch. Yeah. So therefore, Brigadoon is anti-feminist. The end.
Of course, yes. Thank you for coming to my female TED Talk.
Right. No, it's everyone's TED
Ladies'
Talk.
TED Talk.
It's everyone's TED Talk. Witch's history is for everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. What else you got?
Let's see. Well, here's my. So just to wrap up our plot summary, which we started like 100 years ago. They fall in love. He wants to stay. Jeff is like, no, you can't do that. Why would you do that? And Tommy's like, okay, I guess not. Like, he's talked out of it really easily. Go back to New York. There's an extended sequence in a bar in New York where it's basically everyone is horrible.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of gags,
except for Fiona. And his fiance's awful, and he's just been in a fog for 4 months, thinking about her. And he immediately is like, we're going back to Scotland, and they go to where Brigadoon would be. And he says, I want to see that it's not there. And then poof, it's there. And there's Mr. Lundy saying, you woke me up. And I want to know what's the correlation here? 100 years. So how many years per minute? Like, how much sleep are we causing him to lose with this? But they get Tommy and bring him into Brigadoon, and then I assume it goes back into the mist, and then Jeff is just stuck in the middle of Scotland, like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Well, I mean, he got there. He presumably knows how to get back,
I suppose. But he goes to find some liquid refreshment somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a lost soul. Like,
pretty
just
much.
Let him go do his thing somewhere.
He's going to go drink a lot. Well, here's my question. At some point, so in 1954, you could imagine a village being remote and nothing's going to ever be built there. So it can just pop in and pop out a time and it's fine. These days, development is a lot faster. At some point, Brigadoon's going to come back, and they're going to pop into someone's living room, and we're going to have a situation like the others.
Presumably, yeah. Or it's going to be like maybe it's like The Village. It's like also part of the contract was like that the land would be put into
And now, Your Almightiness, if we should need some medicines,
right.
Are there some towns nearby that we could go to?
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Sorry, we've got a cat intrusion.
Trying to drink from the water hose.
Cats, as you know, are witches.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, but he's just like, we need an exception from whatever the European FAA is so that they don't fly over, and we need no one to be able to build here.
And God's but son, there's not can fly except for the birds. And Mr. Forsyth is like, well, just in case.
If it ever happens.
I mean, let's think of all the eventualities, really. I mean, we're planning to avoid witches that we know don't exist. So at this point, there's no detail too small.
100 years is a long time.
No possibility too far-fetched.
When the flying cars are overhead,
Shouldn't there be a way for like a little gray box to send information from one to another? And God's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What in the world?
All right, we're getting real punchy here.
Yes.
Brigadoon.
But yeah, I want to see the version of that where Brigadoon pops up and they're like in someone's living room.
Oh yeah, it'll be hilarious.
Fiona is like, well, Tommy, I know I said I loved you, but this fella, his bed's in our kitchen and he's right attractive now. And Tommy's like, yeah, I can't. Sure. You get new ones every day.
Yep. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm like this.
I don't know either.
I am stone cold sober.
You are hopped up on Diet Coke. That's what it is.
No, you know what I think I got some very good news today about I took a test to get into graduate school and I scored in the 99th percentile, which I did not think I would, and I did, and I'm very excited. So we're going to blame that.
Yes. You did a great job.
Thank you. And, we can talk about it because nobody knows right now, but by the time this episode comes out, everybody will. So,
all right, let's gather our thoughts and let's talk about what else you got on the list.
I think that's kind of it. So even though the Broadway version of this was a smash, like it ran for forever, and then there's been revivals of it every so often. They did a mock version of it on Apple TV in the last couple of years, which I didn't see. Schmigadoon. Cecily Strong was in it, and a bunch of SNL people. I don't know.
It's just a bunch of people doing their like Mike Myers Shrek level,
possibly
Scottish accent.
Possibly, or maybe are there deleted scenes with Mr. Forsyth where our take is actually surprisingly right?
Yeah, like we don't know it, but we're like stealing from their shtick here.
So the play was a hit. The movie apparently tanked.
Yeah.
This came out the same year as Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which I'm pretty sure you have not seen.
No.
One of the Seven Brides for Seven Brothers didn't age well. There's some gender politics in there that are just really, by 2022 standards, are pretty wretched. Should have been wretched by 1954 standards, but they put up with a lot back then. Anyway, they thought that Brigadoon was going to be the bigger hit, and so they took money away from Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and put it into the production of Brigadoon. However, not enough money because, for example, they had to shoot all this in an indoor soundstage. They were going to try to shoot it in Scotland, and it's in a soundstage to the point that there's like a lot of ferns where it looks like it's a tropical rainforest.
Yeah, like it's very obvious that there is like a backdrop.
Yeah,
in most every scene.
Although they have lots of animals and sheep and goats.
Yeah, like
and
it's a decent
various things. Although I did in the little IMDb fun fact area. Gene Kelly has to do a number where he's dancing near a cow. It's one of those Highland cows with the shaggy bangs and stuff. And Gene Kelly was very anxious about the cow what exactly he was, I don't know.
Some kind of childhood cow dancing.
Yeah, unfortunate experience. Well, it's got these big old, longhorns, I can see. But so he demanded that the cow be changed to the floor and it have a blindfold on, I guess, thinking that it wouldn't charge him if it couldn't see him.
Right.
But also, I think when a cow can't see, it's probably a little freaked out. And it's going to be more erratic.
Yeah,
so
that's something with like the orange or red on his costume. He
maybe. I don't know.
Like, oh, I think I'm like trying to bullfight it.
Maybe. So they did that. And then they put plastic eyes on the blindfold so that the cow would look like it was real. And, and part of me is just like, maybe just don't have the cow.
Yeah.
Maybe just get a sheep.
Yeah. Just like something. Why is the cow so important to the scene?
Yeah.
Or we need to sell the fact that we're not in a soundstage.
Yeah. Sure. And a cow standing still, that never happens. So that's totally fine.
Yes.
But yeah, so however money they put into this, took off of 7 Brides for 7 Brothers and put into this wasn't enough. Apparently I think this is one of those things where audiences loved it. Maybe critics were like, what? No. And that makes sense. Because at least, totally. We complained when we watched An American in Paris about how are these people falling in love? This is really weird. At least that was over the span of more than, 18 hours.
Yeah.
This is extremely fast.
It's like some True Love mojo kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's like Before Sunrise, except there's no takebacks.
Yeah,
I've never seen Before Sunrise, but I get the trope. So
it's very fast, but that's what you want to believe. You want to believe that you're just meeting the right girl.
And there's this whole undercurrent of having faith in something and believing in something, and Jeff doesn't believe in anything, and it's kind of not believing in God, but kind of not believing in love or anything, just capital A, anything.
Yeah.
And Tommy wants to believe in capital S, something. So, and that's not very well fleshed out. And it's, Yeah. This is an interesting movie.
I'm hesitant to use the word but I would like to see the stage play. I would like to observe it in fast forward at some point.
Well, I remembered there being like a Call of the Clans or something, and there's a little bit of it when they're all processing together to where the wedding is going to be. There's troops, people that come in, and I remember that being longer, and so I think if done well, this could be interesting, the full version, but this is not what we saw.
Yeah, there's not a lot of chance to learn about the culture and stuff, and there's something there where you could have. You could have had more of him, like him with her being introduced to more of like the mundane chores of life, and that like contrasting with his rat race that you see briefly when he goes back to New York of, businessmen yelling things about business, so that there could have been more of that, like that he's not just falling for her, but he's falling for the whole thing. Just the whole way of life, and that he not just because
it's just the simple life. He just wants to live on a farm,
right? Exactly, because he could fall in love with the life and the woman, and that could have been fleshed out, made it a little more interesting, especially if they had to cut stuff.
Now that I think of it, I think that the 1754 part is around the same time as the events in Outlander, which is also like time travel.
All right.
So I want to see a universe where the Brigadoon folks and the Outlander folks meet up, and they have a rumble over something.
Yeah. Sure. That's you're right. Write it. Put that in your folder with your rest of your Brigadoon fanfic.
Where Harry Beaton and Jeff ride off and have just a angsty.
Yeah, he doesn't shoot him out of the tree.
Right.
He woos him out of the tree.
They're like, we'll go to this place where they won't find us, and
we'll go to the edge. We'll go to the edge of the borders.
So technically, you're not leaving, but you'll never have to see anybody, and we'll just be hermits and be grouchy. And
I know this shack with a hay bed in it.
There is a rocking chair.
Yeah, there's a lady in a rocking chair.
There's this weird subplot where one of the women in Brigadoon just sets her eyes on Jeff and assumes that he loves her immediately and tells him the story about how her mother seduced her father. Her mother was a gypsy and sat down in the rocking chair and waited for him to wake up. And a short time later, I was born, and it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, and there's this whole thing about how, there's not a lot of men to choose from, but...
I saw plenty.
Yeah, like it seemed like there were plenty.
They're all shirtless, too, which is, I was saying, I feel like the Scottish around that time were rather modest, but yet they're just walking around with no tops.
Yeah.
And even the men that have shirts, they're like unbuttoned down to the navel, which is odd.
Just how you do it.
I mean, these men in real life are dancers, so it's fine.
Right. Yeah.
But it's odd. So, okay, should modern people see Brigadoon?
I don't know.
I think just for the lulz. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a historical thing, right? Like, I think this and American in Paris and Singing in the Rain and all this stuff from this time period, where there were all these dance-heavy musicals that were musicals first or movies first or whatever. Like, yeah, I think it's a time capsule. I mean, the same way that you should watch Casablanca, even though like the acting and the pacing in that movie is dreadful, or like The Maltese Falcon, like all of these movies have historical significance on some level. They represent like what was popular at the time. Mm-hmm. And I think it's worth, it's worth watching that stuff in any given time period just to for fun, just to get a sense of it. Like it's the same way that you listen to music from the 60s and 70s and 80s and, like watch it. It's not, the pacing was good enough in this. I feel like American in Paris, the pacing was like really tedious in a lot of ways. Like looking back on it, I don't know if I felt that way right after, but like looking back on it, I was like, man, that movie seemed like it was 4 hours long.
This is pretty short, although when you cut like half the songs, it's going to be. One other thing that I do really enjoy about this is I like that Fiona from the beginning, well, she has to, because she has to be primed to like meet her true love, but she has the song at the beginning about I'm waiting for the right guy to come and I'm not going to settle for anything less than the right guy. And I'd rather not be married than be married to the wrong guy. Yeah. Which I guarantee you, very few women in 1754 Scotland had that attitude. Probably not many women in 1954
right.
Scotland have that attitude.
There's, like all the things you hear about that time period of like marrying off your daughters and dowries and all this stuff. Like, yeah, you would think that, yeah, she would be under pressure to have already been married off. Yes.
Well, and they say, a woman wants to be married before 25. I feel like even at 25, you were probably considered dried up and, can you even have babies anymore? So it's a little bit, that part's not historically accurate, but I appreciate that facet of Fiona's personality. False, maybe.
And that's the one. That's the one thing that's not historically accurate. Otherwise,
everything else is completely
basically
brought in historical consultants.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically 100% like going back in time.
Right.
100%.
Right. Yes. Yeah. What was with the pants that the men were wearing, by the way? Speaking of going back in time, those look like spandex.
The pants, well, they were dancing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sometimes they were in kilts or whatever, but yeah, they were dancing. And like in the big scene in the town square where they all do the impromptu dancing, they're all wearing like strappy sandals.
Yeah.
They basically look like ballerina shoes that have been like painted leather color, and they have like straps going up the legs.
Oh, I didn't notice those. Those are called gillies if it's what I'm thinking of, they actually wear them to do Irish dancing and Highland dancing too. So
I feel like it might be accurate. It
might be accurate dance shoes.
Speaking
I don't know if
of
that's
weird
what you wore
clothing
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say I want someone who's in blah, blah, blah industry to come tell us all the things that a movie got wrong about working in the industry. I want a Scottish historian to come and be like, actually.
Right. Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah,
This is one of the worst examples of.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
The hats these women wear are, there were some hats that were kind of bonkers, but anyway.
It's all bonkers.
It's just fun and bonkers.
Yeah, it's fine. Like, work your way through the more famous musicals first, like Music Man and all that sort of stuff. And at some point get to this. It's fine. Like, if you like that sort of Gene Kelly dancey dance,
I was gonna say it is
style musical. Yeah, like you'll like this.
It's Gene Kelly, so there's only so bad that it can be.
Sure,
I will take Gene Kelly any day.
Sure.
So, well, I think that's Brigadoon, folks.
I guess
we would love to know what you think of it. Give us your best Scottish accent. What do you think that God and Mr. Forsyth talked about way over on the mountain? Let us know your thoughts. You can tweet at us, you can send us an email, or you can contact us on Facebook. Our handle's the same for all of those. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can tweet at us, send us an email at gmail.com, or find us on Facebook. And when you're on Facebook or Twitter, for that matter, you can get links to all the latest episodes. You can also find us on all of your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcasts. We would love it if you would subscribe, or whatever the parlance is, and then you'll get our latest episodes right in your queue. You can also rate and review the podcast, which lets other people know about us, helps other people find us, and have, listen to our fun discussions that are extremely scholarly. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Dave? Yeah.
Quite.
We bring on historians and evaluate films from very, very serious angles. We have new episodes every other Wednesday, so that means 2 weeks from today, there'll be a new episode right in your queue or wherever you go to get them. And 2 weeks from today, what are we going to be watching, Dave?
Well, as usual, I have a meandering answer to that.
Oh, okay.
Time.
You're going to walk through the heather to get to the answer.
I'm going to step over the heather and the broomstick. So longtime listeners may remember our Fright Night episode, in which I said there was a triumvirate of the
triumvirate. Trio.
I've had a couple of drinks.
It's a trio.
A trio of movies that redefined what I thought vampires could be. Fright Night, which we were watching in that episode, was one of them. Lost Boys was the other. And the other one I said at the time was probably lost to history because Near Dark was not available on streaming or on any Blu-ray or other release. Well, it has now come to Shudder, and I don't know how long it'll be there, so we are going to strike while it's available, and we are going to do Near Dark.
Okay. I know nothing about this, so it should be illuminating. Illuminating to watch Near Dark. Ha 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 ha. Anyway.
Yeah,
okay.
So vampires, dirty, grungy vampires.
Oh, ew. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yes.
Okay. And no dancing in this one.
Probably not.
No. Okay.
Not that I recall.
All right. Well, we will see you in 2 weeks with Near Dark and vampires. And until then, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marion Cowie Owen.
Did you say Cowie?
I said Cowig. That's the name.
Didn't sound like it. Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marion.
You sighed during my intro.
I sigh when you talk. I sigh when you talk a lot.
I know it's hard. But try to refrain.
I don't know. Yeah.